Greg has done it again.
I did. What I do this time?
Something good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So what a great discussion you're about to witness. Our guest, Dick Wybrow.
Yeah.
Wybrow. Dick Wybrow. What a great human being. What a great storyteller. What a pleasure to hang out with. Full of surprises and good humor. What was your experience like, Greg?
Well, this is our third ride with him. And there's a reason we keep riding with this guy. And, you know, it's funny. He's on the very opposite end of the world. So he's calling in from Churchland, New Zealand. And yeah, it's just a pure joy. This is why I think you and I love these rides, for experiences like this.
Yeah, agreed. I'm very buoyant, and I know you guys will be too after you listen to this conversation. So please support the podcast by subscribing, share it with your friends, tell your mom, support Blast, support Compton Cowboys, and remember, we love you.
Sis, hallo? Blijven.
Zeker wegen dem.
Joh je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have an author who proves the childhood literary trauma can eventually lead to a prolific publishing career. When our guest was just 6 years old, his father handed him a copy of The Wind in the Willows, which naturally put him off reading for years. Lucky for us, he eventually discovered Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and realized that fictional worlds could actually be bizarre, absurd, and hilarious. Originally from Canada and raised in the United States and currently living in Auckland, New Zealand with one wife, 2 cats, and a horse, he's a former stand-up comedian turned purveyor of supernatural thrillers and urban fantasy. Whether he's writing about werewolves in his Wolfware series, bureaucratic demons in Hell Incorporated, or the futuristic sci-fi heist in the Facilite Con. Did I say that right?
Facilite, but you're good, man. Keep going.
Facilite Con. He always brings a killer sense of humor to the dark and twisty. Please welcome for the third time the incredibly funny and Dick Wybrow.
Yeah,
man, it's a three-peat. It's a three-peat. I'm really excited about this. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great.
Yeah,
good to see you again.
Yeah, hey. It's been cold here because I'm as you mentioned, where I'm actually in Christchurch now. We moved here just a little while ago. Yeah, so farther down country because it wasn't cold enough yet in Auckland. Well, it actually just rains nonstop in Auckland, and so we moved down Christchurch ways, and she's chilly down here, brother. It's cold. I mean, I grew up, as you said, I grew up in Winnipeg, and so this isn't like Arctic cold, but it's all relative, and so it feels cold.
How come you cut your hair then?
I was because I got married, and so my wife was, and so I was married before, and then in the last year or so, I went through my Christian journey because I am now Catholic, and I was agnostic before, so that's been fascinating. But with it, yeah.
God, so
but
happy
with it,
to know you.
but within that, my wife went, okay, let's go get a church wedding. And I said, fine. And so she says to me, she goes, because now I'm Catholic, she's Catholic, because she was Catholic before. And so she says, well, do you want to do just kind of a little wedding, or do you want to do like a sort of a bigger wedding? And I went, I want to do a bigger wedding. And she goes, I do too. Okay, great. I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
And that's what we did. We did a very large sort of blowout. So it was good. It was good. You're going to brag about 2 cars for what we put into that one day, but it was still a magical day. It was great. It was fantastic. But within that, so then my wife took me to her hairstylist, hairdresser. I don't know what we call them. Basically, it's just somebody who would have been a barber, but they charge far too much to be called a barber. And so I went to her and she said, oh, this has got to come off. And so now I've got oddly short hair because when I first moved to this country, it was down to my shoulders. and it's just slowly going up. Next time I speak to you, I'm going to be bald, dude. I'm just going to be shaved.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, because when I went to college, I did Bible study during lunch breaks for a semester at least, maybe more. And things parted when they were telling me you have to cut your hair. Like it says in the Bible, you should cut your hair. And I'm wondering, did this choice come from that? No, it didn't. I can tell by the look on your face. No, okay.
No, it's purely fashion. And there's also there's an element where when you get, because I'm coming up on 60, and so there is an element where suddenly you go, I'm going to have to do something with this. I'm going to have to start making choices. Because my favorite part, you've ignored the device, obviously.
Exactly. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything.
You're right, but and I prefer it because when you've got longer hair, for the most part, you don't have to mess with it at all because it just kind of all hangs, and I like that. But now with this, now I've got to do stuff. I've got to put gel or mousse or something in there. That's more admin than I was planning on. Nobody told me about the hair admin, but I'm committed now. Some people don't have to worry about it. Mark obviously has less of a concern of these things.
Right, I only have to deal with it every couple of days when I shave. And today it looks like you combed your hair with a spoon, Dick. I'm going to be honest,
dude. It's chaos. It's challenging too because now it kind of all comes forward, and it's a lifestyle change. I feel like I should be wearing different clothes, making different friends, this sort of thing, because it's all going a different direction now. Because she's got me combing it from from where the crown of my hair is, and then when you've got a hairstylist that looks at you and she's checking the back of your head and she goes, that doesn't feel good. I can see your face. There's a mirror here. I can see all of what you're doing back there. But she says that my crown is like back here, like in the back of my head. So I'm broken. It's usually kind of up here. No. It's like some sort of spot back over here.
Your bald spot is sliding down the back of your head.
It is apparently. Eventually it's going to get down the middle of my back. So that'll be kind of good because then people won't be able to see that. Unless I go to the beach.
Well, there's a character in your book called Elmac.
Yeah.
And what kind of hair does Elmac have?
Oh, see, it's a challenge in this sort of story, right? Because this is a new series I'm doing, right, in the Facilite Con. Or Facilite Con. It's whatever. It depends on the region you live in. But Elmac looks human, which makes him, as you discover in the story, I'm not giving anything away, which actually makes him illegal. Because this story is set like a couple hundred years in the future, and they realize that having a bunch of sort of robots walking around that look human, that ain't so good. I mean, we take a look at what's going on with AI, and you can't determine between what's human and what's machine. There's problems there. And so Elmac, aside from the fact that he doesn't have legs beneath it, past his thighs, because he was a war bot. And that's not giving anything away. You pick that up on the story. He looks human, and so he has nice hair, beautiful sort of wavy Superman-esque hair. I believe that's how I see it.
Wavy Superman-esque hair. I love it. Now, how about down there?
Oh my God, pubic hair. Great.
You know what? It's worth asking this question because he is. If you want to be crass, he's a sex bot. If you want to charge more, he's a companion bot. Because. And I won't get into all the details, but there's a reason why he was a former war bot and is now a companion bot. So I think it's at the discretion of his owner, or whatever you might want to call it. So Feynman she's the starship captain, and she's the one that gets this guy in her crew, and he's a companion bot to her. Now there's no sort of nasty stuff at all in the story. They're mostly just he's doting on her, but I would think you'd have to trim. I would think if you're going to be a good companion bot, that you give it a wee bit of a buzz cut. You don't want it to look like you're walking through Vietnam in the summertime at all, man. You don't want that.
Right. Well, and that begs the question: having been coiffed properly for your new marriage, what level of coiffing are we finding for you in this region?
Come on now.
Are you asking another man? Does the carpet match the drapes? Exactly. I think that is what he. I'll be honest. There was a time when
I'm asking for the audience, right? It's
of course
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, I remember one time because there's a point when you're getting older, as you guys know, where suddenly gray hairs are coming in, and for some reason, there they start first, or they did for me. And so there was a time I remember just plucking them out and like seriously put them aside, put them on a and like making a little pile until the waiter came over and said, "Listen, that's not appropriate. You can't do that. That's not okay here." But
well, thank God you were at a nude beach anyway.
Yeah. So these days, yeah, I do it. I trim it enough so that I'm not going to get too personal, but basically so people can realize, oh no, he is a guy. So that's I just got to keep that kind of tight. Yeah.
Boy, how did we end up here? All right, so why?
That's my fault, Greg. You can blame me.
That's fine.
Usually it's me who's doing this. All right, so I looked up Facilite or whatever. Facilite, and the only thing it's French for ease.
Facile means simple. Yeah. Yeah.
So what?
It's a made-up word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you're French.
Yeah, so Facilite is in the store. Facilite is our MacGuffin. It's so Feynman and Company. So basically, in a nutshell, we'll get too deep into this because this is boring for listeners. They don't care about plot lines. But basically, the story behind it is that we start to discover a little bit about Feynman's backstory. And basically, she was on a crew, this spaceship. And they're kind of like they're flying con artists, basically what it was. And some job goes wrong. The whole crew dies in a fireball except for her. So she inherits the ship and it's a bit damaged. So she's got to get it repaired. Only way she can pay for those repairs is to do this big job where this magistrate has said, I want you to steal these gemstones in this safe. And that gem is called Facilite. And so that's called the Facilite Con. So it's about stealing those gems. And so that's basically what it comes down to.
Robot pick up this engineer and head off
exactly.
to the adventure.
And they pick up Bert the engineer. He is, as I describe him, he's an engineer with 4 thumbs and no clue. He's fun. I actually really love Bert. He's a kick.
Maybe he should have been the pleasure bot with 4 thumbs.
I tell you what, he would probably consider himself. He's one of those guys that that has more confidence than he deserves, which I think a lot of us sort of maybe feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, he thinks he is the ladies' man for sure. And any woman look at him and go like, "What? No." So yeah, he would love to be that sort of thing.
But you've been doing this a fair amount of time, and our previous interviews we've talked about Kane, one of your biggest book movements. And it seems to have wrapped up right now. Is there a chance that there's more Kane, or do you feel like it really came to the place it needed to be complete?
I have discovered that even if I feel like it's come to the place it needs to be, that my readers don't always agree with me. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I wrote the first 5 books. And I'm not going to, this isn't, again, I really worry about the spoilers and all that, but basically it was a 5-book arc. The idea was that Kane, his goal, and then he's joined by Imelda, and the goal is going to be like, I need to find a cure for his humanness, because he is a wolf that gets bitten by a man, and that wolf then turns into a 6'7" French Canadian. In the full moon, he turns into a werewolf. And the other moon phases, he turns into various dogs of various sizes. So him and Imelda go out and they're searching for this cure to make him wolf again. And so I ended that in book 5. And this is no great surprise because, as I've said before, all my stories, they end kind of on a happy ending. Now, I don't really always know how my guys get there, but all my stories, the good guys win. So he ends up becoming a wolf again. Yay! And then my readers went, no, that's not over.
I recall that there's a woman who wrote to you very adamantly, like, "Hey, you need," and I think it was the girl that she wanted backstory on.
No, that was great. That was actually during. I think what you're referring to is when I was between book 2 and book 3. There was some reader groups because they'd read Kane, and every now and then somebody reach out to me. Hey, listen, can you Zoom into our reader group? Of course. And so I was speaking to a woman in the UK, or this group in the UK, this readers group in the UK. And at the time, because, I start books and I don't know everything that's going to happen. Usually I try to have an ending. I have to know at least the destination of where I'm going. But I sort of was missing that thing that was getting me through the book, right? Every book has that thing that kind of carries me through. Mm-hmm. And so at that time I was like, I hadn't quite worked it out. Oh, I've got to do the Zoom call with these lovely people in the UK. And so I got on there, and this woman says, she's from New Brighton. I think it's New Brighton. And I wonder when British people hear this, they go, oh, New Brighton. I have no idea. But she's from New Brighton. And she says, you know what? I can't wait until we can find out a little bit more about Kane's background, about how when he was brought in by his two human parents for that year and what happened. And I went, well, that's funny. You mentioned that, because in book 3, that's what we'll do. Because up to that point, I didn't really have that sort of throughput thing. Like, what's that thing that's going to kind of thrill me and get through there? And so she mentioned that, and I was like, well, of course, this is where I would do that. She's exactly right. So readers are bright. They're very smart. And so
they really want us to succeed. They want us to succeed. Yeah. They're rooting for us the whole way.
I think so. And so I took that, and it ended up being one of the most fun sort of journeys, because there were all these sort of flashback moments. A little bit like, I don't know if you remember Magnum PI. Yeah. When he was out there, when he's treading water, trying to survive, and the whole episode was just him treading water, and it was all flashbacks about his youth and everything. That's kind of, into some ways, that inspired me in that book. A little Magnum PI treading water inspired me in that book, for sure.
Mustaches are coming back, I see.
Unfortunately, I do see a lot of that. We were just watching some Netflix show last night about somebody killing somebody or something. I don't know what it was. And a lot of these young, because my wife loves those shows, which is a concern for me. Yes. When she starts taking notes, that's when you got to worry.
If she starts posing like a praying mantis.
Yeah. But all these younger guys are now doing mustaches. Like, no, that's not okay. It looks awful. It looks terrible.
They'll figure it out, just like we did when we had ours.
Some guys can pull it off. Some guys, I can't pull it off. I can't do it. When I do a beard, because I've got, you see my hair, that's not dyed. That's the color, but it's actually quite lighter than that, quite orange. I look like I face planted in wet Cheetos. It's not a good look at all. It's just this patchy sort of orangey thing. No. I don't want to do it.
So what is the journey from agnostic to walking with Christ?
I had not planned on that.
I bet.
Yeah, because I wasn't one of those in-your-face arrogant types. We all know those folks. Like, here's my non-belief story. Let me press this non-belief story onto you, which is kind of an irony in a way. But no, I wasn't like that. I just was sort of like hanging out in the woods. And I'll be honest, part of it came down to getting fired, which a lot of these stories probably have a little bit to do with this. And I remember feeling really, really low. And this was right after I wrote the first Kane book. So it's been a couple of years of this process, and I just got baptized this past Easter. But yeah, it was me starting to realize that I kind of wasn't as in control of the rudder as I thought I was. And the more I started to understand that and see that, and it kind of came to me in several moments, but I remember one in particular that was really telling for me, because I got really, really, really low. And you can tell my personality for the most part. I'm not really a low kind of guy for the most part. And it got so dark for me for a while because I couldn't find any work. I'd been in television for 20 years, and they deleted television in this country pretty much. So there was no job, and there was another 300 people in the job market looking as well. So it wasn't happening. And so I was looking at Australia. I was looking at getting into marketing and all this stuff. And I got really low, and I ended up calling up a suicide hotline. Well, not necessarily that I was there, but they don't have a sad clown hotline.
Right.
You know, they don't have.
Right. You're looking for some help.
Yeah. So it's got to be the extreme, right? And so, and I was kind of like, oh, I don't know, call up and speak to these guys who are like, oh, there's always alternatives. I'm not there necessarily, but I'm really, really dark. And who knows, maybe I was more dark than I thought I was. And so this was sort of a moment that kind of convinced me maybe there's something, because had this person just been, you'll be fine, everything will be good, that sort of thing, I wouldn't have heard that so much. So I call up and I start talking to this guy. And he's, oh, well, what's the situation? What's got you so down? I said, well, I'm in television, or I was in television, and I'm trying to find a job in TV because I was at TV3 and they got rid of the news on TV3. And so we've really been struggling. And the guy goes, yeah, we used to watch TV3 every night. We used to watch the newscast every single night. And then that show you did, the project, oh, that was really good. I don't know what we're going to watch now. I said, yeah, it's been really, really all these people lost their jobs. Yeah, that was our evening, to watching TV3 at night and then watching the news right into the project. And that was sort of our routine. We don't have that anymore. And I said, well, there's always alternatives, you've got HBO. So here's me now literally counseling the guy about his night getting ruined because I got fired. Right. And it was so that spoke to me because of all the things that could have moved me in that moment. The irony and humor in that moment was so ludicrous that I was like, there has got to be some force out there saying, this is funny. This is what you'll react to. And I did. I was like, that was so perfect for me in that moment. Mm-hmm. And it was hilarious. This guy's feeling bad. I'm talking to the suicide counselor and I'm going to make him feel better. Right. Me losing a job. And so that was one of those moments like, okay, what is that? Because that was so bespoke, right? That was so personal. And so from there, not to belabor this, but from there, I started to take a look back at my life, those moments that I thought I was really, really clever, and those things that I got myself out of. And I should have been dead. You guys probably have similar stories. I should have been dead 3, 4, 5 times. No question. I had no business getting through that. And the more I started to look at that path dozens and dozens and dozens of times, I was like, I am not that smart. Somebody's watching over me. And that was sort of the beginning of my path. And so I started investigating it, looking into it. And I tell you what, man, I feel great. I feel amazing about it. It's an amazing group of people around me. And you're learning all the time. So it's been it really has been a fantastic journey.
Now, does your wife enter this picture as you're exploring what is this thing going on? Or was she the fulcrum of it happening?
It was funny because when I finally decided that this was something I wanted to do, I can be pretty binary because, like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And it's going to get done. So I went to her. And you got to keep in mind, she's Catholic. And so she has been for 30 years. But she's never pushed me. And we've never argued about that. I was never disrespectful of it. And so she is quietly, in our entire marriage, we were civilly married 15 years ago. And I said, we just got married in the church just after Easter. But about a month later, she had, as she told me later, had been praying for like 14 years. She wanted a Catholic husband, but she never pressed me on that. So then imagine her surprise when I said nothing about it. And I come in one day and say, hey, listen, I want to go to church. And she goes, whoof. And she goes, well, okay, there's one down the road. She goes, hold on. And I didn't know this. She went to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, went, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? She had been praying for this for 15 years. She's wanted this really bad. And now it's in front of her and she's unprepared. She didn't see it coming. Right. And so, so she was happy. But no, she had no influence at all on it. She's been helpful along the way.
Do you think, okay, so you have 15 years of marriage.
Yeah.
And now this is a really new chapter. Have you found a strength and a new growth in your relationship?
Do you know, I hate to say this stuff because somebody will think I'm putting it on, but 100% it's changed our relationship. And 100% it has. It's been, so I don't know what it is. I think because when the idea is when you got God of the relationship, now that's it. She's the one. I got no other choices. I'm locked in. I'm like eternally locked in at this point. I don't know. I make fun, but maybe that's some part of it. But no, our relationship is significantly better. It's warmer. It's I think really, and I've started to think about this more and more of late. I just wrote about this I'm on Substack like everybody else on the planet, and I was writing an article talking about the secret of marriage. And this is something I sort of determined since we've been married the last couple of months. And I think the secret to marriage is feeling lucky that other person is with you, having a little bit of that. Not always, I guess you can't always, but a level of that. Because if you feel like, I don't know why she chose me. I don't know. I am so lucky. Having a little bit of that feeling all through the marriage, I think, and that's gratitude, right? That's having gratitude, which we learn about. But having that gratitude for that other person keeps your head in check, which is great. And so, yeah, I think definitely, I think coming into the church and getting married in the church and that massive wedding and that big reception after that, I think it's actually improved, absolutely has improved our relationship.
Now, when I got married in the Catholic Church with my ex-wife, we went through a pre-counseling thing. Did you have to do that?
Pre-cana. Yep, it's called pre-cana. And there's different versions of it, right? So if you, and I think it's a good idea because if you're a younger couple, like I got married the first time when I was like 23 or 24, and she had 2 kids, the woman I married back then, and there was no conversation with anybody. It was just, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. And then we had some Deacon Marius in her backyard and all that stuff. But in this case, we've already been married, as I said, for like 14 years at this point. And we sat down with the priest and we had what's called pre-cana. Cana is, I think, that the town where Jesus ended up turning all that water into wine. That was his first miracle. And so they call it pre-cana because that was a marriage, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if anybody's interested in that. I found that kind of fascinating. So anyway, so we sat down for pre-cana and basically he just kind of looked through the sheet, goes like, you guys, I'm 15 years, whatever.
Right.
You've kind of been doing this. So it was still a valid conversation, but it was pretty much like, you guys got this going on. In fact, listen, I'm a priest. I don't know as much as you guys know about marriage.
Well, I think if we zoom out a little bit from the Catholic framework in this concept of pre-relationship training for people, I think it's really helpful. Like 100%. We don't do a really good job of teaching our young men, especially, how to operate, how to do things, and women too. So it was really helpful for me when I did it. And in the end, alcohol beat that, but that's okay.
Yep. No, I agree with you. In fact, there is a guy that I know and he's no young pop, but he is getting married in the church coming up here in January. And it's so funny because he has been talking like, we've been together for quite some time and all this sort of thing. And but nothing's going to change. When we get married, it's still going to be the same thing. And I'm nodding along going like, you are so dumb. You have no idea. And so, yeah, I think because there's plenty of us, and I include myself in that, we're all dumb, especially guys. Guys are just stupid when it comes to a lot of this stuff. But I'm okay with that because it tells me when I realize I don't know any better, I need to ask questions and check into stuff. And he's one of those that you need to go speak to some people.
So did God, is God showing up in the Facilite Con or in your writing now?
There's a little bit of that. It's funny because I didn't put into this one. I almost did. It just didn't fit. As a writer, you have plans to put stuff in. But sometimes, even for as much the whole kill your darlings, right? I desperately want to put this sort of line in there, but it didn't fit in some way that works. So I'll probably do it in book 2. So you guys are hearing this and this, before anybody else. So I do want to have a throwaway line where somebody does mention Jesus or something and say, yeah, we're still waiting for the third coming. To me, that's really funny.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what? Almost like he showed up and went, what? What are you doing here? This is no good. What's happening? No, you're not ready. And so he goes again. I just kind of, but don't get into it. Just leave it at the third coming. That makes me laugh really funny. Really hard. Yeah.
That just reminded me. I heard a story. I think it was Bill Burr. I forget who told about Richard Pryor, that
Yeah.
sort of towards the end of his days, he did this bit in Los Angeles where he came out on stage and just started talking as though he was God. Like, hey, have you seen my son? Wait, what? What about Martin Luther King? Wait, no,
Right.
you did what? And then
Right.
he just like said, I've had it. I'm done with you.
Right.
And walked off the stage. Have you heard that story?
No, I could see that. Richard was brilliant. He, you know, a lot of people just saw him as a bit of a potty mouth. He's one of those brilliant, and he did it at a time where, forget about it, I can't even imagine the sort of heat he took.
Right.
He was brilliant. But that concept in general, I mean, Douglas Adams has a funny bit when he was talking, that same sort of thing, like a character, you know, some aside talking about, you know, that maybe we should all, you know, get along a bit. He said, oh, which is a bit of a dangerous path for people, you know, because when people start to say, hey, maybe we should all get along together, eventually they might nail you to a tree, you know?
Yeah. Right. What other?
Yeah.
One of the things that's true about you is you were a stand-up comedian before you did this. And it's clear from hanging out with you how much fun that is. And how do you think stand-up has informed the way you write and balance tension and adventure?
So I think stand-up it teaches you storytelling, right? And it's a brutal teacher because there's nothing that'll teach you a hard lesson like silence when you're up on stage. So no, it was a very good storyteller, and it's one of those where you can take a look at the evolution. I wish that comedians had a way to share their evolution of stories. Like as bits go, like there's a lot of people won't remember this guy, Larry Miller. He's a comedian many years. And he had this bit called the 5 Stages of Drunkenness. And it's a brilliant piece.
Yeah.
By the time he got to like television, I think he did it on HBO or something, but because I opened for him many years ago, years and years and years ago. And the progression and the, I think so it was. And it was the evolution of that bit over the years. But honing that down. And so I think I only did stand up really, that only paid my bills for about 3 years. It didn't pay him very well. That's why I got to become a radio guy. But I did that for about 3 years. And that's what it taught me about, oh, listen, that isn't quite working with the crowd. What if I did this? What if I did this? Oh, that did work. Well, why did that one work better than this one? And so it taught me a lot about the structure of humor and about storytelling and the economy of words, because you don't want too much fluff in there. You don't too much noise in there. You want to trim it down. And that's what a lot of times good writing is. It's kind of like stand-up in that way, which is funny because I often equate writing to being on the radio, but I think stand-up did in a lot of ways. I think stand-up did help a lot, teach me how to do the storytelling better.
You know what I noticed about I'm going to mispronounce this throughout the rest
Facilite.
of the Facilite Con. Is the first words are very engaging in this chapter. It's like it's off and running, which I've noticed with writers. Like that person you hear the first novel's always trash. And I don't know if that's real or not, but there is that element with a good writer is someone who grabs you right away. And I guess I'm just thinking of, though, I used to love Edward Rice Burroughs as a kid growing up. And the first 90 pages were tedious, but then all of a sudden they took off.
Yeah, I mean, writing styles evolve. If you try and go back and read Mark Twain, you will struggle. And I did like last year. I was like, what in the world is happening here? I love the stuff once you get it, like you say, once you get into it.
Right.
So I think I think a lot of it has to do with our attention spans. A lot of it has to do with expectations. So that's why so many movies for a while and so many books will have that first scene where it's full on insane action. And then the next chapter is like, well, I'll tell you how we got there, basically to grab you ahead of time. But I think you can basically tell stories in a way, and it depends on how you get somebody. Am I getting them in through the peril, the action, the humor, some turn of phrase, whatever it might be? You need to give them a bit of a flavor within the first line or two, within the first sentence. And so, yeah, as you say, and it takes a while to craft that right. But yeah, when we get into Feynman, we know within the first sentence or two the kind of person she is.
Right. And that's part of what I noticed is you're giving some credence of intelligence to the reader. you're not spelling it all out.
Yeah.
Me as a reader, I'm learning like, oh, I'm putting the pieces together.
Which is part of the fun. There was a time when I was way more, and I wasn't trusting yeah, I think it was like I was explaining stuff far too much. And the thing is, you read more, and as you read, when you're a writer, you read differently because you're looking for structure, and you realize I just don't need to do that. It takes up a lot of time, and it's kind of fun to put some of those pieces together. And you will lose on occasion some people in that because some people are skimming through. They might be listening to the audiobook while they're cleaning or whatever it might be. But usually those moments are moments that they can slide anyhow, potentially. They're not plot specific. And I think people hear that or they got that in the back of their head anyhow, and it forms some opinions for them.
All right. So Amy Hutchins is your person who's reading Facilite Con.
There it is.
Did you choose her? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so that was fascinating. So if anybody's interested at all in these sort of processes, so I was really blessed. I'm getting used to saying that now, by the way.
It adds more meaning these days.
It does. It does. It was always lucky, but now it's blessed. And if I say lucky, my wife will correct me on occasion. It's blessed. And she's right. She's absolutely right. So I was really blessed because right after I published Kane in September of 2023, maybe August, one of those. Within like 2 or 3 weeks, I think it's because it's high concept, right? It's a concept, right? When I explain it, I got that. That's interesting. And so I had Tantor and Podium and 2 or 3 other production companies approach me to do the audiobook. They're like, we'd like to do this audiobook. And I was like, oh, good Lord. Okay. And so Podium got there first. And so I had them produce that. So they did all 8 of my Kane books, all my Wolfware books. And then they were like, and we want to do anything you write for the next couple of years. And so there's a spin-off series of the Kane books, starting with Soul Ringer, which you can see right over there, Soul Ringer. So that's the first. Then there's Past Present. And then there is or Past Perfect. And then there's another one coming up. Coming up here later this year, a 3rd one. So they're doing those audiobooks too, because I'm contracted to them. So I actually had to write them a letter, say, hey, listen, I'm going to do the Facilite Con myself. Because I used to be in radio for, like I said, a dozen years. I was in production for another 20 years when it comes to video. So I kind of want to produce it myself. And they were fine with that. They were totally cool. But I had to sort of go to them and say, listen, now you guys have first right of refusal, but I'm going to do it myself. And so it's going to be a crazy process. It's going to be really compacted. It's coming up here in the next couple of days. I got to finish everything off. But so I went around searching for just the right voice, went through dozens, probably even hundreds of different audio folks. And it's Feynman, the main character Feynman is a woman, and so it's from her POV. So I needed a really strong woman sort of presence. And Amy has this amazing range. She can do all these voices. She's so good, accents and styles. But I had her and a couple other folks, and I went to my readers of my newsletter. I said, which one do you like the most? They voted on her. We went back and forth, and she's such a pro. She's in New York. And so I gave her, it's called a checkpoint. This was kind of new to me too, by the way. So you give her, in this case, a 15-minute sort of script. Here's what it sounds. Here's what I'm looking for. Can you do these character voices? Give me an idea how this book sounds. And she cut that, sent it back, and I was blown away. It was so good. It was so good. And it's crazy to kind of hear, and I know I've got those other 8 books with Podium, but I guess I was so focused on this because I'm so involved in this process. But to hear your words just come alive through somebody else, it's really it's like you blink. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, that's also real now. It's all those characters now interpreted through somebody else is intoxicating. It's really amazing because now it's almost in somebody else's hands, and now I get to almost enjoy it as an observer, which is unusual. So she's been great.
What's the difference in terms of the kind of manuscript that you give a reader who's going to read it into an audiobook? Do you give them character traits that aren't in the novel? Like a lot of writers do character background so they can get the speaking voice of the character when they come into the book. Is there stuff that goes into that script that's got more background than what's in the traditional novel?
I give her all the character breakdowns. She knows stuff about the characters that readers don't, for sure. And she has to know because there are a couple of reveals in this. There's one specific big reveal. And so she had to know that going in, because then that's how she can prepare the voices that she's doing, but also some of the attitudes behind it too. There's an amazing sort of moment, because that can work either way, I guess. There's an amazing moment, as an aside, in Breaking Bad. Bryan Cranston was talking about this moment where his character gets accused of killing another character, right? And so when he gets accused of it, he's like, I would never do that. What are you talking about? And so as an actor, he thought that was true. And then Chris Carter, the creator of the series, goes, no, you really did kill her. And then he was like, oh. That worked for them because he had to play off almost in sort of like a split psychosis way that even he didn't believe he did it. But in the end, so that was much stronger. And then when because had he known he really did kill her, he might have played it a bit differently. But in this instance, I do give her all those bits and pieces because there's little reveals along the way. There's little sort of character growths. There's stuff about their background. And you start to wonder why these two characters like warm to each other, but cold to each other. What might be behind that? And for actors, I've learned a little bit about this because I've been around some actors, like a lot of us have, I guess, over the last couple of decades, and giving them a little bit more to kind of give a bit of a fiber to that character, a bit of realism to that character really helps him get behind that. So yeah, I give her a character sheet. I give her the arc through what this book is and some hints about what's going to be happening later in the series, a whole list of pronunciations, and then how I hear the character. So like with like Imelda in the Kane series, I have a lovely woman named Maria McCann who ended up voicing that part of the POV. I told her, or I put in the notes to Podium, who passed along, that she sounded a little bit like Kat Denning, the actress. And so that gives her an idea about what I hear. And then she can take that, interpret that, and move forward with it. So yeah, anything you can give them to kind of inject a bit of like what you hear in your head, but then you also have to be able to back off and go, and then, let them interpret the character as they read it as well, because they're artists themselves and they bring a lot of depth into that character. And like I said, Amy is doing she's doing an amazing job. I can't wait to hear the whole thing.
With the prevalence of audiobooks, just like they're really a big portion of the market now. Do you think we're right on the cusp of having radio plays again?
Ooh.
There are versions of that. You take a look, there's some audiobooks, especially ones that really blow up. There's a good number of them out there. Take a look at, I think, I don't know if it's free, but the new Harry Potter, I think they're doing a version of that. I think they call it dramatized audio or something like this. So what they'll do is normally you've got just that one person sort of reading through the book, like a Stephen Fry, I think, read a lot of the Harry Potters. But now they've got a cast of like 30 people doing the audiobook. So I think there's a version of that now. That is a dramatization where they become like, as you say, like radio plays. Because I love it. I don't know about you, but the old Hitchhiker's Guide, BBC audio, those are brilliant. And the newer ones, it was 15, 20 years ago, with Dirk Maggs are almost even better. But that sort of thing. And I would absolutely love to see that happen one day for this. There's some narrators that can pull off, and Amy is very good at this too, that can pull off a cast of characters. Like I'm sure you've heard of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. Jeff Hayes, who does those voices, is next level. And there's audio, and they've got sound effects and stuff. It's one guy doing about 50 voices, and it sounds like an entire cast. The guy's got to be schizophrenic. It's insane sounding. It's one of the best sounding audiobooks I've ever heard. But yeah, so I love the theater of the mind. I love that far more than even, television or anything like that. I think that sort of theater of the mind is brilliant. I'd like to see a lot more of it for sure.
Wow. And do you think if you knew you were going to write for a dramatization storybook or a theater of the mind version of the Facilite Con, would you write it like a screenplay? Would you rewrite it?
There are people, I have readers of mine that already tell me that a lot of the stuff that I write is quite visual. That is quite that it feels like they're watching a movie when they read the stuff. But I think if I knew something was going to be put into a dramatization, that maybe I might tweak things to give them some space, because rather than two people just sort of talking in an area, whatever it might be, you might give them a where, as they call it, right? Where maybe they're working on something, or maybe they're playing tennis, whatever it might be. Just something, so there's something happening in that space rather than just two people in a room at length. You want to give them a little bit more within that sort of visual field to create a scene. But other than that, no, I think for the most part, the stuff that I write is pretty active and is often working within that environment. So I would think for the most part, the stuff that I have as written probably would work that way.
You know, there's a recent film called The Odyssey, which is a famous poem written by Homer. And the film, I loved it. And it's an enormous challenge to reduce something so full into a film. If someone were going to try to encapsulate all of the Kane books into one film screenplay, would you think that's an impossible task? You know, what do you think it's possible? How would you advise them around Kane particularly?
I don't know that you could do all 8 into one, but even one book into a movie is tough. But I tell you what, there's some amazing screenwriters out there. Like Drew Goddard comes to mind for sure. He's the guy that did The Martian, and then he did Project Hail Mary. And he's amazing. But he makes choices. He's like, okay, I've only got, whatever it might be, 100 pages, 105 pages, whatever it might be. I don't know what they do nowadays. It seems to be much longer and longer all the time. But you have to make choices. Like a lot of times you take characters and you combine them into one because it's just more efficient that way, because you can't give all these side characters all the time they might get a particular book. So I think that you can do it. It's funny when you mentioned advising. There's Max Brooks, who is the son of Mel Brooks. Max Brooks is an author, and he wrote the book World War Z. And I happened to be in a bit of a circle with him back in the day. And when he signed over the rights to World War Z, I said, were you involved in that process at all? Were you involved with the script? Because the book is extremely different than the movie. Very different. The book is told in almost a diary style, and it doesn't have the same through as the movie does. And he just said, like, you know what? I took the check. And he's somebody, obviously his father's been in the industry for 60 years or whatever. So that comes from experience. So I think you can absolutely be somebody who just goes, I'll take the check and then, hey, that's it. I'm going to walk away because it's going to break my heart, whatever you do. I think Hugh Howley, who did Wool, and then what's become the Silo series, I think that Hugh Howley has been more sort of involved. And there are times like the very first season of The Last of Us, which was a video game. Those guys actually produced and wrote the television series. So they were directly involved with a lot of that. So I think you find a balance there. And if it were ever something, because I do have, you always have various interests from production companies and that. So I think that I would be involved as a consultant in some way, but also knowing that there are things that they're going to cut and move around that's going to break my heart a bit. And I just have to know that that's coming and be okay with it.
So you're making the Facilite Con movie. Who are you casting in Feynman's role?
You know who I really like? Ella Purcell, I think, is very good. She's like the lead character from Fallout. And she's also in Yellow Jackets. Yeah. Another one is her name escapes me at the moment. She's so good. She's the one from Companion, actually. She is so good. Yeah. She's so amazing. The way she can flip is amazing. So that sort of style, because they both have kind of that sardonic sort of style to them. Either of those would be fantastic. They're brilliant people.
Yeah. What is next for you? I see an opportunity in the Facilite genre, having done an extensive AI summary with it, as opposed to reading the whole.
Hey, that's fine.
Do you think a prequel regarding Uncle Dessus is in the possibilities?
So it's funny you mentioned that. So I'm writing a prequel, and I'm publishing it on Substack and then Royal Road. If you're somebody who's on Royal Road coming up here depends on when we air this, but around the 5th or 6th of August. We might be beyond that by now, but if we are, go there now. So I'm going to publish what's called Before the Con, and that actually tells. It doesn't really get into Desi. There's a little bit in there about Uncle Desi, because that old crew. I might do something with them one day, but it pretty much there's a window of about 3 days that. And I don't want to give anything away, but there's a window of about 3 days that tell you how she gets to the point of where the Facilite Con starts. And so initially I was writing that as a prequel, like I said, to publish serialized on Substack and on Royal Road. And it was going to be 20,000 words, bit of a throwaway. It ballooned out to 44,000.
Wow.
It totally got out of my hands. But the thing is, it was so rich and so good. And it's just publishing out now, but I really enjoyed it. And it was so full that I had to go and make edits in the Facilite Con because there were things that were so good. I had to leave that sort of thing in. And so, that book, the prequel, thank goodness I hadn't published the Facilite Con yet, because I went ahead and make probably about 1 or 2% changes in the story, but which made it that much better. So that was really fun.
So partly you're mentioning all these mediums for stories to be on, Substack and audio and the hard printed version. And you mentioned Railway, which I know
Royal Road.
Royal Road. Okay, I don't even know what that is.
I struggle with my R's. Royal Road.
Royal Road.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering, like you're kind of hinting that you are doing it already with Facilite Con, is a multi-medium story where to get the full story, you have to engage with all these platforms.
Potentially. I like breaking stuff. I did this a couple of years ago for another story of mine. And what it is, I had a web page while I was writing a book, and the web page was me interviewing characters in the book, almost like it was a movie. And so there was this whole bit of these two brothers that were like these inspectors, played by a couple Belgian actors, and I was interviewing them on the website. And so people say, wait a minute, how is that? Is this a movie? What is it? I loved that.
Like because it was almost create a Blair Witch situation, like a Prairie Home Companion type radio show.
It just gave it kind of this depth of, like, as you're reading, this idea that no, these are actors that are playing these characters. It was so bizarre to me, but it kind of gave it a depth. So I love that idea. And I've actually been approached by a couple of folks for these verticals. I don't know, you're familiar with that at all? I'm just coming into this. No. So verticals is this, it's worth looking into. It's pretty neat. So verticals is this idea of telling stories on your phone, vertical. And you might say, oh yeah, well, whatever.
Yeah,
no, they're actually, yeah. And there are these production companies that will do 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 11 minutes. They're short. And so I've had a couple of them, hey, listen, we'd like to turn these other stories of yours into something like this. And so we've talked a little bit about that. I've got so much going on that's on hold at the moment, but it's something I'd be interested in pursuing. It's so wild because for as much as, and I understand that for as much as a lot of independent authors or new pub, as they've started calling us, but a new pub authors do lament about, oh, it's so difficult. The market's so crowded. It's like, this is such a gift. We are so blessed right now because back in the 90s, forget about it. We had gatekeepers. I would send a book or a story into a magazine and hope that somebody might put it out there. These days, we can do it all ourselves. There's nobody saying no but us. That is a gift, a blessing. And so, so there are opportunities all over the place right now. And it's hard, because there's all these other people doing it. But I have found one thing about this. If you, like me, if you're too naive, if you're too dumb to stop and you just keep going, eventually all those other folks kind of fall away by the wayside. Stand-up comedy was the same way, to be honest. Like if you go for a year and a half or so, and it's all you guys just kind of trying it out and coming up, about 90%, 95% fall away because after a year, you're not getting any traction. I got other stuff I can do instead. But if you have that desire to keep doing it, keep pushing, you can make it. A lot of times you can make it just because you're too dumb to stop. And that was me. That was a success I had. I didn't know
We're
any
counting
better.
on that at Moped Outlaws.
100%, man. You keep plugging away. Eventually, all those like newbies around you that were kind of struggling around, they're falling by the wayside. Like, oh, I'm left. I'm the guy.
And that kind of brings up that doing this stuff consistently, whether it's stand-up comedy, an accountant, a podcaster, it's a challenge. The consistency is a grind. And I don't mean that as a downstroke item. It's an acknowledgement, like you're in the trenches. You're fucking doing it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got to find that thing that's going to push you through. And I think that's why a lot of times that the indies that have been doing this for 5, 10, 15 years or whatever, the thing that's going to sustain you has got to be somewhere inside. Like, even if I weren't publishing like I am and making a living off this, I'd still be writing. It would still be happening. This has to come out of me, because if I leave it inside, I will explode. And so I think that sustains me. And so, like you're saying, like if you have a passion or desire for something, that is such a gift, because it's going to be that thing that just propels you through and keeps you going. Like I've seen in many forums where you have like new writers say, well, I'm going to give this a shot for a year or two and see. Yeah. Okay. Good luck with that.
Right.
You give it a shot. You either have to have this bizarre little gremlin, just like, I gotta get this stuff out, or you don't. And if you don't have that, it's really hard to keep pushing forward.
All right. It seems behind you is the shelf of passions. You've got your books on there. You've got the radio station, I'm believing.
And then there's my wife as well.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. And who's the woman on the top shelf?
That is, I am Naitahu, which is is Maori, as some people say, in the South Island. So that is part of my heritage. That's nobody I'm related to, but there's some photographs of 100-year-old photographs or so of Maori people were taken by this guy, and they're beautifully done. Some of them are just sort of like they're sleeping, and a lot of them are in Western clothes like that. They're beautifully done. That's just one of them that was gifted to me some time ago, which I like. You'll notice that I'm hidden. So that photograph there is my wife when she was just a kid, and so there's me. I'm there. That's me as a kid.
Brilliant.
But the trees in front of it.
What's the little sign say? I am.
Oh, that one. I am wolf.
I am wolf. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that is the expression from Kane. I'm getting good at this pointing thing. Yeah, and TK, that was the radio station, one of my favorite radio stations I worked for back in Pensacola, back at the turn of the century. That's how long ago I was doing that.
Wow. As you've discovered more about Maori culture and been in the environment of its origins, the indigenous land where they're from, how has that informed your spiritual journey?
It's tough because a lot of those journeys are written by the people that maybe didn't adhere to those beliefs. That's a very political way of saying the history is written by the victors, basically. And so as best as you can, you try and piecemeal what some of that is. And I've been very lucky, and I want to explore this far more in the coming years. But it influenced me in the sense that it makes me feel more grounded. Like the Maori people really have a relationship with the earth, have a relationship with the environment, and that real respect to that sort of thing. And they have things that are sacred and things that are forbidden. And so, like any particular sort of culture or belief system, a lot of that stuff isn't just we've decided this is how it is. We've decided these are the rules. The reason why those rules are in there, the reason why something is taboo, or the reason why we do this particular thing is because over the last couple of centuries, we worked out this is really best for us. You know what I mean? Like even like there's some belief, I'm going to get this convoluted, but this belief about sort of chastity and these sort of things in various cultures, like, no kissing on the first date or no kissing until you're married, that there was actually a problem with things like mono and things like this and diseases going around. So it was really encouraged by the culture to don't start swapping spit with everybody because you're going to get everybody sick. Wait until you've decided that you guys are a couple. Now, down the road, in some cultures, that ends up being, be chaste until you're married. But arguably, apparently, some of that stem from if all these people start swapping spit, we're all gonna die. So that chastity came from a very real idea of keeping the culture healthy, the environment healthy. So I take a look at some of the things in the modern culture, and I take a look at the respect for the earth and respect for one another and for oneself, and that does inform my own spirituality. Because I do believe in a lot of that. I do believe in kindness to others and showing grace to others, which is a part of that culture as well. And it's something I feel as a Canadian is sort of innate to some extent. It's born in us. Like, we defer to other people all the time. No, you go ahead. I constantly do that. But I think more and more it helps strengthen that belief system when you see that reflected in these other cultures around you that you respect.
Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I'm wondering, isn't dream time a part of the Maori spirituality, and that dream time is our waking moments here on this planet, and the dream world is the real natural world? Is that?
It's that might be some element of it. And like I mentioned, I'm still learning about a lot of it. But for me, as a narcoleptic, somebody who has narcolepsy, I've mentioned that before, dreams are really important because most of my day I'm kind of in a bit of a dream state, which I think I talked to you about last time.
Yeah.
Because even during this conversation, I have to remind myself I'm awake. Got to pay attention. I'm awake, because there'll be times where I'll drift off a bit. And I think we all do that to some extent. But mine is I got to be medicated. That's the level that I'm at. But yeah, so dreams in my own life, dreams are really important. And thankfully, I was actually talking to another author about this. When I first started the Hell Inc. series, there's an element in the Hell Inc. series where it starts off, and there's these number station. And these are old school sort of things you might have heard about, like back during World War II, where they could send signals over the border, and they would actually broadcast this from the radio, because there's no way to really track it. You can't really stop it. And if I get that information as the spy behind enemy lines, well, you can't see that I'm getting it because everybody's getting that signal. But all they are is numbers. There's just somebody going 17, 25, 23, whatever it might be. And so these number stations popped up. There's actually some even now all throughout Europe, and they're kind of searching for the source. What are these about? Are these just a bit of a goof? Anyway, so when I wrote that into the Hell Inc. series, the first book, I had no idea what it was. I don't know why I put that in there, but I put that in there as a bit of a, like, this is a thing. And I thought, I'll come up with that later. By book 2, I put another reference to that number station popping up again somewhere else. I still didn't know what it was for. And it wasn't until book 4 or 5 when it started to come to me. And most of that really came from sort of being in this dream state, like, oh, you know what that probably is? Oh my gosh, that is what that is. And so my subconscious and my dreams were sort of like ganging up on me, and they were like, had me put this stuff in there. And I mentioned this because this author had put something into her book, and she said, I don't know why I put that in there. I don't know what to do with it. And I just told her, I said, just don't worry about it. It'll work itself out. Eventually it'll come to you. And I think that comes from sort of being in and out of that dream state where my mind's working out all these bits and pieces. I have far too much faith in that. That's dangerous because I take some risks in my writing that it just paint myself in the corner, or just pretty much just stepping off the cliff. And I go, I hope this works out. I end books a lot of times having no idea what comes next. A lot of times I do it that way. Like, I hope this works out.
There's a lot of unreasonableness that goes into making things happen in the world. Like, you have to, if you're too confined by what's reasonable and what makes sense, then you're never going to break out of the depth. And then one of the things that was occurred to me when you were talking about the Maori people was they did an incredibly powerful moment in the political system in New Zealand where they all came together and they said no. How did that work out?
It's tough. It's always a beautiful thing. It always gets it. I mean, because I think I was in the news system back during the Arab Spring. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember that uprising? And the world's going to change now. And it was amazing. And then all that political heat sort of like deflated a bit or cooled. And then we take a look now. It's like, what did that do? In the end, and it'll have various effects. And so when you say, like, how does that work out? The challenge with that is I think the moment resonates, But like when we took a look at the Black Lives Matter movement and all that, and people were marching in the streets, and like, oh, now we're done. This is going to change. When we took a look at the Me Too movement, and I'm not being political either way. I'm just saying, take a look from an objective point of view. Take a look at the Me Too movement. Oh, now these days are over. Of these things happening. It's like that stuff. They're huge movements. They're huge moments in time, and they do have an effect. But I think there's somehow, I don't know if it's the system or whatever it might be. There's a diluting of those effects as things go on, and that can be somewhat disheartening, but I do think it actually affects the fabric of our society in those positive ways. And so those moments, I think, play into other moments and play into other moments, and eventually there's a bit of a sea change. But it seems less and less that there are pivotal moments that change us entirely in the ways that we wish they would.
Here in the United States, I've been grappling with equity and race, and it's been a passion of mine for probably my whole life. And I just the other day heard a young man who's a stand-up comic, and he put into words, he said how he operates in white space. And I realized, oh, that's what I've been looking for as a descriptive, right. A white space. And I think partly what happens, like the Black Lives Matter, is these thoughts erupt in a white space that still is a white space. So as that energy depreciates, which is natural, that space remains. And I think there is a transformation, but it did not change the environment. We're still in a white space.
Yeah, it's something that just changes. I think over time. I think it's turn on the battleship, right? It's just societal changes do happen over time, and hopefully you've got good people that can pursue that. And it's always those people that are doing the grind. You were talking earlier about the grind. It's those people going day and day and really working that grassroots level. There's some lovely women in Auckland that we knew, and they were just trying to, like, because the government here tried to help, let's say, cure child poverty, whatever it might be. And our last prime minister tried to do this, and it didn't. The rates are actually worse. And so from that overtop government level, they poured money into it and poured committees into it, and a lot of real smart people sat around and worked stuff out, and it didn't move the needle. It cost a lot of money, I guess, and didn't really move the needle. When instead you've got people at that basic level making those small changes, that's where a lot of times that needle gets moved. Like, we knew this woman who ran this shop, and her shop she took clothes in, she got donated clothes, and she gave that to women who didn't have the same opportunities. She gave those clothes to women so they could go on interviews for jobs. Right. Really hyper specific, right? So I take donated clothes, I get them all cleaned up, repaired, whatever, and I donate these to women who are seeking jobs. Like maybe they got a divorce, or maybe they're just coming up. So that's a real specific moment. But she does amazing work with that. And so I think it's, for as much as we have these big sort of political movements, we need the grinders. We need those amazing people doing the work on the ground, because really that's where a lot of this success and a lot of the positivity comes from.
Is there a kind of background for these political ideas that is in your books, in your writing? Like, your work in the news has given you some insight into these social structures. Is that end up being part of the landscapes of the various things that you do in the books?
Only if it's interesting. Like, I don't have any political agendas when it comes to the book. And I can really say, for the most part, I have almost zero political agendas in general, because after 20 years, I did 10 at CNN, another 10 here. I had to sort of separate myself from a lot of that. So I do look at a lot of it kind of objectively, which is frustrating to everybody around me because they all have their points of view a little bit, and they want me to sort of fall that way. And I do on either side, but for the most part, I'm down the middle. I do on occasion, and in book 2 of the Facilite Con, I am planning on doing something political, but in a fun way. So I don't know how much I can say about it. I don't give too much away, but there are moments, there are things you can do societally, right? You can make fun of things in society by doing it one or two ways. Either you take something that's a big issue and make it very small, or you take a very small issue and make it very big. The former is more fun. So you take a massive thing like, let's say, like discrimination or whatever it might be, and you take it and you smash it down into a tiny sort of moment, a ludicrous kind of moment. And if you can do that right, as long as I've entered, it's got to be germane to the story. But if you
Right.
do that right, sometimes people read that and go, you know what, it's funny you put it that way, because you sort of take some of the political heat out of it and you just burn it down to the main elements, and people might look at that a little bit differently than they might have originally. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
that
it
totally makes
reminds me
sense.
of Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches.
Yeah. Or you take a look at that amazing there's a Star Trek episode. It was amazing. Some of the stuff where there was I think it was what's his name, the guy who played the Riddler, Ralph Gordon, or
Right.
whatever his name was.
One half of the society has black on the left, and the other half has black on the right.
It's brilliant. But it was brilliant because it was like, well, why do you hate these people and why are they lesser? Because they're black on the left and we're black on the right. It's like, why does that matter? It was so smartly done. It just told the entire story without, it was a little bit, obviously, it was a little bit probably clubbish, but it was really, really clever, because at that moment you go, that is so stupid and ludicrous. But then you take a look at the wider picture, you go, well, so is that other thing.
Right.
Well, so is that other, yeah, of course.
Roddenberry was able to sort of put the genetic structure of his whole universe building had this quality to it, where it challenged the normative views that we had, and it kind of in the fabric of the storytelling, there was this premise that there's a point where humanity gets it together, right?
Right,
And
which is
wasn't
really
like,
screwy for storytelling.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, which really messed up the Star Trek, The Next Generation, because his rule was, when everybody gets along. What? Stories conflict. No, they all get along. What? So
right.
So there were a lot of elements of what he did amazingly in the 60s that weren't as, I guess, well, maybe they translated when the 90s came around, and it made it for a challenge for those storytellers. And once he died, I think the stories got sharper, because that utopian's great, but utopia isn't a good place to tell stories.
Right, because there's no human pathos. There's nothing, right? Yeah. So how do you know when you're writing a series when the juice is run out of the pathos of the setting that you've constructed?
I think like anything, it's like I think when it becomes more of a grind. Writing is always a grind, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but it's not like, because I've known a good number of people, and I see people now all the time talking about, if I could just write for a living, everything would be great. It's like, yeah, no, it's great. I love it. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I've been trying to get to this spot for about 40 years. So I'm happy to be here, but it's a lot of work. You've got the production of it. You've got the construction of it. You've got the marketing. You've got the writing. You've got all the admin that comes around just publishing the book and making sure you get it into paperback, and then getting an Ingram Spark, and then now be producing the audiobook, or getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to interviews with you lovely folks. It's just, and I love doing it, but it's hard. It's all hard to do. All of this is hard to do. But yeah. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it is difficult to do, and you have to have that passion and push you through. Like I was saying earlier, if I didn't have the passion to create these stories and make these moments happen, I would have given up a long time ago and done something different. Because this is hard to do, and it's a big risk, and it's challenging, but it's been brilliant all along the way.
Wow. Well, I think it's brilliant to get to talk to you. I'm so glad we've had you on all the times we've had you on. I know it's not the last.
No.
Please make sure that we have all of the various links that we need to send to sort of get people up to speed on where your Substack is and the various things, so that we can include those in the show notes. And I'm really looking forward to actually reading the book instead of reading what the AI told me about the book in preparation for this meeting.
I'm listening to Amy's version of it.
Yeah, that'll be fun for sure. And
should be great.
There's 2 questions left for me. I defer to Greg if there's more. This one's a little bit different than what we've talking about, but it's present for me, and so I'm going to ask it. As I sit in the United States and observe what's occurring in terms of the violence that's being committed in our name, and the kind of lack of character and leadership that I see in my own government, I feel a lot of fear and concern about the rise of authoritarianism in the world and in general in our country. And I'm wondering if your political social milieu experiences a similar kind of stress and concern and from where your observational point is.
I think it goes back to what we were saying before, because I remember, I don't know if you do, similar conversations back in the Reagan years. Because he was, very conservative, cut this off. Ketchup became a vegetable in school. A lot of these pretty brutal cuts, and a lot of people we have, this sort of very aggressive, very brutal sort of government system. Obviously, with the person in the chair at the moment, there's also, you add in all the other elements around that, and I can't. It's difficult for me to say from here to where you guys are, you should feel like this, because I have spoken to some of my relatives, friends that I have over there, and so there's some trepidation back and forth. But I do believe, as we were talking before, that I'm not saying the person at the top doesn't matter. I don't mean that at all. But really, the long-term effect are all the sort of the communities, all the people that have been grinding their community for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Those are the people that are really moving the needle. Less so with the person up top, because there is a bit of a swing back and forth. And I've seen that in the United States when I was at CNN and even now, that the political systems will swing back. There's that pendulum swing. So the next time it's going to be like this, then back to this. Here in New Zealand, it's interesting because our folks, even though you have the National Party, which is more conservative, then you have the Labour Party, which is more liberal, they're kind of in many ways just the same party. And I know people hate me saying that, but really when you step back, they're both quite centrist in the stuff they do. The challenge with some of that sometimes is maybe they don't make, and I'm just not saying that, I was an observer. Sometimes they don't make the harder decisions they want to make, or it's hard to make what might be unpopular decisions on occasion, especially with a country of 5 million people. But we're very mobile here. That's what's amazing about this country. New Zealand's fun that way, because when we first came in town about 13 years ago, and I remember just being astounded by this, is we came in town and there was this conversation about party drugs. And these were like little pills you could buy at the gas station or something, little speeders or something. I didn't really know what they were. But when we first came in town, apparently some kids got really sick on this. And the people didn't like it. They said, we don't think kids should have those. And they went to the legislature, and they said, we probably shouldn't have those. And within a couple of weeks, they were banned. They just got rid of them.
Just like that.
I was just like, how did that happen? Wow. Wait, what?
Right. So the battleship turns quicker in New Zealand.
It's 5 million people. But you have to have the political will to do that, right? But so we have seen that. I mean, you take a look at New Zealand is one of 5 spacefaring nations. How did that happen? You got U.S., Russia, India, China, Australia, I think. Yeah, and then New Zealand. How did that happen? Well, it's because we had some people that worked with a guy named Peter Beck, who runs Rocket Lab, and the guys in the government, they said, well, let's tick this box. What else do you need? Move that out of the way. Okay, let's get rid of that. And they just went through it. And then suddenly now we can go to space. And so we have an opportunity in this country, although we don't embrace it as much as maybe we should. I can say that because I'm not in the political system and I believe they should do more. So I can tell them, you should be doing more way back over here, but yeah, we can make choices. We can definitely make choices here and do things quicker than in a place of 380 million people like the United States. But I love I absolutely loved, as a Canadian who moved there when I was 9, I love the American people 100%. The most lovely, most generous people I've met on the planet. I absolutely love them, and I have all the faith in the world in them.
Got it. Thank you for that. Well, that brings us to the moment, one of our favorite moments in all our conversations. You may remember this moment, Dick. If not, I'm going to be super excited that you don't remember it. So here it is, our final question.
Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Foo Fighters.
Because
here we go. This is me. So of all the times I talked to Dave Grohl, he was always such a gentleman, and I can only say that because I was in radio. But Eminem didn't take my calls, is what it comes down to. But Dave Grohl, he is such a goof. That guy could have been an actor, a stand-up comedian. The guy's brilliant. The guy is so much fun. I love the guy. I had so much. I remember speaking to him in my 96 Rock days when I was in Atlanta. And I think he was supposed to be on with us for like 7 minutes because you get that little allotted time. We did like 28 or something like that. There was no music. There was no commercials. We blew through programming. We had a blast. He's just a joy. He's great. Yeah. So that's my get out of jail free card answer.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. You inspire me every time we talk. I always leave feeling lighter and more full of joy and optimism about life. We wish you the greatest blessings in your success with Facilite Con and what's coming after that. Thank you again for joining us.
Of course, you guys are always a joy, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.
Recording stopped.